So the first time we heard about anything to do with vision therapy was when Bailey went for his 9-year-old regular eye vision summer checkup. And for the first time, it was noticed that his eyeballs did not only track, but really didn't move left to right like they were supposed to. And so it was suggested that we maybe do a further consultation. And so he went to the University of Incarnate Word Eye Institute and had a further evaluation done. And it was recommended to us after that session that he actually enter eye therapy. So that was the first time that we really understood that he was going to need to go through intensive eye therapy. Standing and seeing, just the implications of the fact that my child's eyes weren't moving, and understand that he's getting older in school and needs to be able to move his eyes and not just his head. So apparently they have a very long list. So after being on the list for 4 months, then I sought out other things, and then was when we found Dr. Bloom's office, which then of course he went through the entire evaluation again with Dr. Bloom, got the same results, and then immediately, I guess probably within the month of the evaluation and all of the tests that were needed to happen, then he was entered into working with Lisa. And it was one of those things where just understanding that it was a necessity. So just as much the physical exercise of swimming and the necessity of going for regular checkups for his eyes and for his shots and all that, there wasn't a matter of fitting it in. It was, how is life going to fit around it?
So it was clearly evident in the way his eyes moved that it was a necessity. So it really.
So when he was an infant, a lot of times in pictures, his eyes would not be in line in the photographs. So early on, because of my eyesight, I had taken it to his pediatrician, and they were like, no, it's fine. They did the tests, whatever, and he was fine. So we didn't worry about it. And then because of his hearing and the number of sets of tubes he had as a toddler, he loved books, and he was always into books. So he would read all the time, so we never questioned his reading. It was a good time for us to talk about vocabulary and bring in the speech, because then as a result of his hearing, he was delayed in speech until he was 3.5. So we just kind of took the reading aspect for granted because he was so into it. Once it was pointed out that, he had distractibility issues in school, and they started coming up at about the end of 2nd grade. And the teachers would say he was off task whenever he was on the large carpet sitting with them, kind of in his own world is what they would say. It wasn't that he was up running around or fidgeting on the carpet and bothering other people. He just seemed to be kind of looking out the window, daydreaming, not paying attention. But then as long as he would read to learn at that point, the teachers really didn't mind. So it seemed like, okay, he was a quiet kid, wallflower. They just kind of let him be. By the time he got into his state testing at the end of 3rd grade, we noticed anytime he had to read a fiction passage where he needed to read top to bottom the entire story, he would fail it. And so we thought it was behavioral, that everything he'd read up to that point was about dinosaurs and trains and sharks, and he just liked nonfiction. And so we thought it was behavioral. Buddy, you have to read the whole passage. Right. We don't care that it's about a fairy. You have to read it. Right. And so then that's where we went into the summer of him having the diagnosis to learn that the reason he liked nonfiction was because he could pick and choose where he read on the page, and he didn't have to read top to bottom. Mm-hmm. So what we thought was a non-issue because he was such a good reader really was a huge issue.
Right. Okay. And what about just coordination issues or outdoor activities or anything worth mentioning there?
So as the second child, compared to the first child, he was our clumsy one. He didn't like to ride the bikes. He didn't want to be outside. He would prefer to be sitting inside. He was our quiet reader on the floor. If he had trains or if he had dinosaurs or if he had cars, he was entertained. And he just always was in his little world. He preferred inside quiet to outside rambunctious. And
okay.
Even in the few instances when he would have the enthusiasm to go outside and play, he didn't have the coordination to do it. He couldn't catch a ball. He couldn't chase the kids. He would always say, wait for me, wait for me.
Mm.
Well, first there was the frustration because I would come home and do the therapy with him at night, and you would see how hard it would be for him to follow the pencil or follow the Marsden ball.
Yeah.
And to keep doing it even though he was frustrated and I was frustrated and success was not quite there. That was difficult. But as we progressed and things got easier, he could do exercises that I couldn't do, and so that was nice to see. His work here at the office, as well as the work home, was paying off. And it's hard because you do have to just push through it, and you have to do it.
Right. Because if it was easy, then you wouldn't have to do it in the first place, right?
It's the repetition that makes everything work.
Okay.
With his self-confidence, I think one of the biggest things is that he's no longer that same quiet boy that was just easy to sit on the side and do things. When he's not understanding or not doing what others are doing, he now often will say that he needs some help because his eyes don't move. Or he could name, I don't know this because I'm working on my eyes moving. And he would always say, I'm going to therapy to help my eyes move.
Okay.
And so he looked at it as a special time for him, and he understood how it was helping him. And so it wasn't something that he kind of hid from anymore, if that's where his quietness came from.
Right.
He was proud that he was getting to do something that was special for him, and he understood how it was helping him.
Great.
I think he also had a desire to try things new. A little more than halfway through the process, he started playing golf, and we would go to the range, and he would get up there and he'd hit the ball and he'd have success. And I don't think that would have been possible without the therapy.
Nice.